Hey, this is Kingfish. In this video, I'm going to go over the process I went through to level up my dialogue art and redesign one of the most important characters in my indie game, the great god Pan. Some background first. I am a solo dev working part-time on nights, mornings, and weekends on my dream roguelite game called The Waking of Haven. In the game, you control one of several heroes trapped in an enchanted forest where each day you start in a magical place called Haven. You explore the forest, you assemble a squad of troops, you fight the enemy, gather resources, and then, one way or another, you return by the end of the day to do it all over again. Along the way, you get to meet a bunch of characters, and today I want to talk about how I redesigned probably the most important character to the game, Pan. In the world of The Waking of Haven, Pan is the mysterious old man archetype who issues the call to adventure. He is blind and he's lost much of his memory, but he has some kind of an ancient power which allows him to survive in this hostile forest and shelter those around him from the sinister gaze of the Watchers. For this reason, he is the steward of a strange amalgamation of ruins called Haven, which is your base of operations for the whole game. The name Pan was chosen specifically as reference to the Greek god Pan. The Waking of Haven is not set in a Greek mythological universe, though. It's only inspired by it. Kind of like how Lord of the Rings was inspired by Norse mythology. In the same way, I want to draw on some of the mythological sources to create my own IP that has kind of grounding or could be used as a gateway drug for players to get hooked on proper mythology, which I personally have a deep passion for. Pan was selected as the old man who guides the character on their way for some narrative reasons that I don't want to spoil too much for you, but also because he represents the god of pastoral wild landscapes. This might not be the official interpretation, but in my mind, he represents a sort of unstructured wild domain that to me seems kind of primordial. It's looser, it's a precursor to the later more structured and clearly defined gods who have specific responsibilities associated with them and associated with aspects of civilization. He's not that. He kind of seems to come before. And in the world of Haven, the same is true for my Pan. He was the precursor god, or in the setting, we call them sowers. And within himself, he represents the latent potential of all other sowers. He's not the father of the gods or anything like that, but more like an early template or like a guide. In real mythology, Pan was represented in a lot of ways, but usually as a satyr or a faun with goat hooves, a tail, and horns and things like that. There is a kind of awkward sexual aspect where Pan is known for, cavorting with nymphs and stuff like that, but I'm going to be leaving that out of The Waking of Haven, at least for now. The Pan in Haven is a broken old god or old sower who is struggling just to get by. Maybe in the past he threw a few feasts and parties in the younger eras, but now he doesn't have time for it, and there's no joy left in his heart. Maybe a good way of communicating this is, what do you think Tom Bombadil would be like if Goldberry died and Sauron won the war? That's kind of what I'm trying to get at. I also wasn't originally sure about the satyr and goat-like nature of Pan, so I left that out as well in the earliest designs and landed on something that looks kind of like this for the in-game art. The biggest deviation that I can point out is it has to do with Pan's color. Color theory is a big part of The Waking of Haven, and each of the distinct sowers represent colors on a color wheel. Pan represents all of them, and so in this iteration, I thought the combination of all the colors represents, white. Without that context, you'd assume that the god of the wild would be something like green or something like that, and have associations with that, but in Haven, that's not the case. For this reason, I made most of his clothing some shade of gray, and he's carrying a staff with jewels that represent each of the primary and secondary colors. And this was all, I guess, okay. It allowed me to get unblocked for more development, but didn't quite hit the mark for what I was trying to accomplish with the character or with my art style. And that meant that I had to go back to the drawing board. It was time for me to completely reinvent Pan, and what you're going to see in a moment is that I had to do this a few times to get it right. And we'll see if I even have it now. As a quick note, this was actually also an opportunity for me to experiment with my tools. So far, I've been using a program called Leonardo on a Surface Pro, which has been really great for creating game assets. But it has kind of a scrappy indie product vibe that doesn't offer a whole lot of functionality that I didn't know that I was missing, like line stabilization for line work, effects, or most importantly, the ability to automatically generate time lapses. So I got my hands on a small hand-me-down iPad, and I got the opportunity to switch to Procreate just as an experiment. So what you're about to see is literally my first time trying this new tool out, and it's a little clumsy. Okay, so for the first iteration, I wanted to start with the faces and draw a bunch of different faces that might represent the kindly old character, the broken Pan personality that I wanted to evoke at a glance. And so you'll see that I go through a few of these. I also decided that I wanted to bring back some of the more satyr-like or the fawn-like nature of the character. So you'll see that he has horns and that he has eventually a tail and long ears. I'm also leaning into a lot of the visuals that emphasize, heavy cheekbones, a broad face that's also kindly, and something that can really just be a trustworthy guide for the character. The art style here is also an experiment in that, previously a lot of my art has been mostly focused on a kind of whimsical, isometric style, digital acrylic kind of thing. I've never really leaned into line work or emphasizing lines, and I give it a shot here. So you'll see that I transition from the underdrawing, which is drawn with a pencil equivalent in Procreate, and then I am now moving into the, I guess it's called an inking phase, where with a solid color I paint over the main lines that I want to emphasize and I want to make into the final drawing. This is a really uncomfortable process for me. It's something that I haven't done a whole lot of. Usually I'm comfortable sketching things out, laying color down, and then blending color and those lines all together into kind of a final work. So this is interesting. Some part of it feels like I'm losing work by creating a layer that I will eventually ignore, but I think the results speak for themselves. Now here you see that I found a face that I liked among the lineup, and I'm starting to lay in the color. This is a clumsy process, but ultimately, it's a process of trying to find the right colors that work for the character. Once I had that fleshed out, I felt good about completing or continue on with the rest of the artwork. On the side, you'll see that I drew up a few designs of what kind of outfit I want Pan to have. Now, Pan is a Greek god, so something like a toga seemed appropriate, but I also wanted a lot of the artwork to, the clothing and the outfit to reflect who he is as a pastoral combination of all the other gods. His pose is taken from the previous pose, so he's carrying a staff that could probably double as a walking stick, and his hand is outstretched. That's kind of one of my ways, in addition to his gray eyes, to indicate that he's blind. To emphasize kind of the more elderly or older nature of the character, the fact that he's seen so much and been through so much, led me to redesign the character so that he no longer has brown hair but has white hair instead. I want him to really look grizzled and like he's been through a lot. In this iteration, you'll see that there are claw marks across his eyes, which kind of leads some sort of story to explain why maybe he became blind in the first place. As I draw out the designs, I guess I'm going back to the pencil stage here. As I draw out the designs for the clothing, I wanted to deviate away from the earlier design where Pan's clothing was grayscale or white, and I wanted instead his clothing to reflect the fact that he is a combination of all the other gods. And for that reason, there's going to be a lot of almost random seeming colors thrown into his attire, but there's actually a lot of hidden meaning there. His green cloak is a representation or a symbol of his closeness, or his, what's the word I'm looking for? His association with all colors, including the color green and the forest and living, growing things. His red sash is his association with the sower of red named Curite. He has purple in association with Ixie, gold or yellow in association with the god Fair. Blue is present for the god Sarthi, and then, or the sower Sarthi. And then I think the only one that I left out is orange, which actually may be missing from this drawing. I'll remedy that in the future. Now, while I'm at it, I also want to take an opportunity to take the heirlooms or the artifacts that many of these characters might be carrying with them and convert that into designs to flesh out the story, as well as art that I can use for items that you can pick up in the game at some point in the future. So that's what I'm doing here, just to kind of explore out the purpose of the different parts of the outfit and what they might look like, what they might be responsible for. So there's the brooch, there's the crown of flowers, the leaf cloak, his leather bracer, the red sash, and then I actually decided that I wanted to add a pan flute, which is an important decision that will affect not just this design, but future designs as well. So for this one, I worked from left to right, and I wanted to start with really broad, vague brushstrokes to try to capture the gesture and pose. I tried going for something a little bit more dynamic on the left as just a rough sketch, and then I reeled it in and tried making something a little bit more realistic and tried experimenting with how I could keep the hand up in order to signify that the character is blind. Continuing moving to the right, I started settling in on a hand on hip pose that started looking a little bit too sassy, but I did kind of like it at the same time. I started experimenting with the colors again on a rough sketch. And then actually on the right, I landed on a pose that could take advantage of the pan flute. And that's when I had the idea of, okay, yeah, maybe the character Pan should have a pan flute. Maybe that should be a part of their character. And that led into the next image, which is the final render of what that what that kind of culminated into. Now, at the time of creating this, I have also been playing a lot of Hades 2, and I've always been inspired by the Hades artwork. And so I decided I wanted to try experimenting around with the cell shading and the use of large black shadows as a way of forcing contrast. And then I also wanted to explore the kind of ridiculous highlights across the character that I think the studio who built Hades calls Skittles. This is a little bit of an extreme example of what I would ever expect in future artwork, but again, this character Pan is supposed to be a culmination or primordial combination of all the different other sowers who are each represented by a different color. And so maybe the highlights, if I wanted to take on the Skittles approach, maybe the highlights would also be multicolor. In this version, I think I was starting to like where I was going. I liked the dark shadows. I kind of liked the Skittles. The pose was okay. I did like the move to using the pan flute, but there was still something missing. For the next and last iteration of Pan, I wanted to return to Procreate to give it another shot. I felt like I was onto something, but I couldn't quite grasp it, and it was just a matter of practice before I could really capture what I wanted to do. I'd already locked in on the kind of kindly face that I wanted to, invoke, and I had already experimented with different poses that I thought that I had liked. Here I'm experimenting around, just seeing what reflects the learnings of the previous drawings. And then I finally found something that I was able to carry forward. I wanted to keep a lot of the things from the previous iteration. I wanted to keep the cloak. I wanted to keep the crown of flowers. I wanted to keep the fawn-like nature. I wanted to keep the pan flute. And here I'm just going through the penciling stage to lay those things out that I know that I already like. My focus here is not quite as much on the concept work of figuring out what I want pan to be, but more how I want to render it. And that helped me focus. So I went from the pencil stage to the inking stage a lot more confidently now that I have a few iterations of practice. I think I'm starting to settle into my style. Here you're going to see me struggle with color and how to color skin. The idea that I had under this or behind this is that maybe I could use bouncing shadows as a way of subtly indicating that Pan is affected by or contains within himself the different other source colors, yellow, orange, red, purple or violet, blue, and green. And I tried putting that into the bouncing shadows in the face and the rest of the body. At this stage, it didn't work, but I think we'll see that it does actually pan out, no pun intended. So here we see a lot of the same components from previous art being represented again. And we're also seeing a lot of the same lessons learned from previous iterations where I'm experimenting with darker shadows to kind of really pop out the contrast and make this look almost comic book style while also retaining my own style and familiarity with what you'd see in game as you're walking around in character, not just in a dialogue screen. In this way, it feels a lot like I was able to take all of the previous concept and world building lessons that I had before, a lot of the pose work that I had done previously, and then a lot of the style work, and kind of combine them into, well, what we have now, and I'm rather pleased with it. Let me go ahead and show you what this looks like in game. And here we have the three different versions of Pan as they exist in the game world, which is not in the dialogue menu. In the middle, we have the original sprite, which is the old man with the walking stick with the different colors on the stick, where he represents white. And then on the left was an iteration that I was trying to make happen for one of my middle iterations. I found that was a little bit too noisy. What I had done is I had actually scaled down the dialogue art that I had done to a smaller resolution and tried filling out the details to make it fit, but it just wound up being too cluttered and noisy. On the right, we have the final version that I have, which is more reflective of the final image that I created. It's got simpler shapes. It seems like it fits in with the rest of the art a little bit better. When you would speak with Pan previously and enter into the dialogue menu, this is what it would look like. This is fine, I guess. Once again, it got me past what I needed to in order to keep developing, but really isn't as engaging. And especially if we're going to be making any comparisons to Hades, there's a higher bar that I need to cross. After the change, this is what it looks like, and clearly I think this is significantly higher quality, more engaging, and it's just better. Or instead of better, I should say that it clearly communicates the idea of Pan, the emotions that I want to convey, and evokes how the player should feel about the dialogue that's happening in a much more effective way. All right, so I think that's about all that I've got for now. This took a lot of work to kind of go back to the basics and reinvent one of my main characters multiple times, but I think that it's paying off, and I'm developing my skills as an artist and developing the art style that I think I want to represent the Waking of Haven in the first place. This is really exciting, and importantly, it is a precursor to an upcoming update that I'm going to be calling the Home Sweet Home update, where I update not just the behavior of Pan, his art and his dialogue, but also Haven itself. With that said, thank you for checking in. Thank you for watching. If you do want to help this channel and this project succeed, please consider liking, subscribing, leaving a comment. That really does help. And clearly, this channel could use some help getting a little bit more traction. Anyway, thank you so much and have a beautiful day.